Welcome back to another episode of the Downsizing Roadmap Podcast with your hosts, Jodi, Rosko, and Heather Fisher. We're talking about all things downsizing, from our own experiences with clients to guest experts. Let's make downsizing easier, one conversation at a time.
Hi, welcome to the Downsizing Roadmap Podcast. We're excited to be here today. Lots of our episodes are talking directly to people thinking about downsizing, but being adult children ourselves, we like to pop in and give some episodes for all of the other adult kids out there helping their parents and just working through this whole process as a family. So today, that's what we're talking about, some ways to support your downsizing parents without taking over and kind of steamrolling the whole process.
Yep, I'm Jodi, Rosko.
I'm Heather Fisher.
And I think it's really easy to steamroll the process, and I think there's a lot of kind of friction that happens around this sometimes. And I think there's ways that you can deal with it. But I think, being one of these people, I feel like we are we have kids still, we have aging parents that we're dealing with, we have jobs, we have spouses. It's really hard. And there's a lot of just overwhelm around it. And because of that, we end up kind of trying to just control it all and just be, put it into another list of things that we're going to get done. And unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. It just doesn't work like, okay, I can just handle this because it's your parents and it's a whole different ball game. And so, I think talking about it and just kind of giving some ideas will hopefully help you, navigate it a little bit differently than I did.
Yeah, guys, the emotions and the struggles through this process are there for all of us. It's very normal, the emotions, the frustrations that can come in families during these phases, very normal. But we're going to talk through, why some of it looks the way it does and how you can maybe get through it a little easier as a team together with your parents and through the process without the chaos. Yeah,
we so 72% of adults over 60 say that staying independent is their top priority, and we literally just did an episode a couple back and go listen to it about independence and why we're like that. But it is so strong. It's such a strong thing in our country, wanting to be independent. And so when we start trying to take control of it, then our parents feel like we're, taking away their independence. And so then they just, dig their heels in, hit the brakes.
Yeah. But then surveys also tell us, a little conflicting here, that 8 in 10 adults say they do want help. They just want it in the right way.
Yeah, which is really hard because you're already navigating and you're like, let me just help you. But I think understanding how much they need that feeling of independence, then we have to navigate it through that feeling or around that feeling, or being cognizant of how we're not stepping on that independence as we move through it, and it'll just be smoother for you and easier for you. And so
finding ways to offer it that will be well received, so that progress can be made and decisions can be made, and you get through it.
Less frustration on both sides, honestly.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's start with understanding the real reason that downsizing is hard, right? So it's not about the stuff at all. I mean, it seems like it's about the stuff because you'll go over to your parents' house and be like, oh my gosh, there's so much stuff. What are we going to do with it? But we can't start with the stuff. We have to start with their motivation to move, or maybe they don't have any and that's a problem for you and you're worried about that. But that's where it needs to start.
Yeah, step 1 in our downsizing process is dream it. And, if it's you're the adult kid and it's your parents, that can be a conversation you can talk through and maybe help them dream it with some questions. And I'm sure we'll get to a couple of those here as we go on. But just asking those right questions to dig for the motivation. If they're saying they want to downsize but they don't know how to get there, questions around the motivation and how you can help them get there will work. If they're just saying, we don't want to leave this house, but you're seeing red flags as to why that might be, those questions and understanding their reasons will help with that too. Some of that self-discovery of how things can be easier.
Yeah, because it's not about the stuff in the house. I mean, it will be logistically about the stuff at some point. But in the beginning, it's about their identity and what that looks like and how it's tied to the house and the memories of the house and all kinds of, emotional stuff about the house. Yeah. The stories and who they are and who they used to be in that house and who they might want to be in the future. And so it's really deep stuff, actually.
Yeah.
And so making that shift in like, what is my new life going to look like? What are my new routines going to look like? What's my new space going to look like? Who am I going to be when I'm in that new, place? What am I going to get to do? What don't I have to do anymore? Pros and cons of all of that stuff. So I think when, as, the adult kid, you just want to get over there and focus on the tasks. Like, okay, what do I need to do to help you get to where you need to go? And first, if you want that to go smoothly, they have to figure out what that looks like. And if they're not doing that and you're worried that they need to, then what are ways that you can ask them some questions and ease into it so that you both understand what their motivation could be, and then you can work from that motivation into the other logistical stuff that needs to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, control over our own independence, our own life matters to us all at every age. We see that with our kids when they're younger, when they're learning that balance of, yeah, yes, exactly. The grandkids are at that age, and, it starts so young where you want to start doing things on your own, but you still need help. And we all, want to not be a burden, not to have people have to help us, but we need it sometimes.
Yeah, and I think most parents, most people in general, don't just want to be told what to do. They want to be part of that process of figuring out what that looks like. And I think what happens too, and sometimes this happens and you can't help it if there's memory or cognitive problems, but that role reversal where you are now the parent of your parents doesn't go over really well.
No.
And your parents don't want you to do that. And you don't want to do it, probably. It all feels super awkward and weird. And so when you kind of steamroll in with like, okay, this is what we're doing and you need to move mom and dad and whatever, then you're just going to get pushed back in that and feeling like you're now, I'm your parent and I, don't tell me what to do because you're the kid and all kinds of stuff that they still do want the help. They do want it, but just it is the way that it's presented.
Yeah. Along with change, and you get a loss of the familiar, and that produces stress. When things are changing, that produces stress. And the earlier you start these conversations, the more time you have to go at a pace that feels comfortable. It will make the situation much easier than just coming in at the last minute and like, well, you've been talking about this for 2 years, let's go. And doing everything all at once can just build up that stress of change happening too fast and, causing problems.
Yeah, and in full transparency, this is exactly how I went at my mom. Mom, we need to do this, we need to do that, and it did not go well. So this is genuine, like our own life experience as well.
Yeah, I'm sure that I come in, with just a lot of information. When I've helped my parents, we have a lot of resources and I've dealt with clients doing this. So I'm like, of course, I know exactly what you need to do. And I know I've been at fault of not taking the time to, talk through those emotions around it, or to have patience for, slower decision making or slower understanding of information that I'm more familiar with than my parents.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. Like we are, in a place where we have to make quick decisions at work. We have to make quick decisions with the kids. Like, we are quick decision making, our whole life is like that. And that's not a quick decision. Like, that whole process of moving down, it's not a quick decision. It's a big life change. And so we might think we can see so clearly, like, exactly what needs to happen. And like, come on, why are you waiting? Let's get on with it and make those quick decisions. But patience, I mean, you just have to have the patience to, throw that out there, let it marinate a little bit, have them start to think about what that looks like. And it's their life in the end. It is their life in the end. And so how do they see it? And then how can we make that happen really is what the role of us should be.
Yeah, so if you're looking at, how to have that first conversation without just being hit with defensiveness and, having it feel abrupt, you need to start with curiosity and not just come in with solutions that you've decided on and saying this is what needs to happen, but really just asking a lot of questions to make sure, number one, that is the right solution, and number two, to get them on board with that solution and come to that realization through the questions you ask.
Yeah, I think self-discovery always works so much better than, being told something. So leading down a path of self-discovery will get you so much farther, so much faster, because faster is what you want in the end. So to get there faster, have them self-discover what needs to happen, and then, that will go much faster than any kind of head-on-head kind of like, you need to do this and I'm not doing it, whatever conversations might be happening, and if that's what's going on.
Yeah, so some questions you could start with is, what would make life feel easier right now? Have you thought about how you want the next few years to look? How can I support you in this process? Just then put your listening ears on and listen for those answers and pick up those key things that they're saying on how you can plug in.
Yeah, things like, what do you want to spend your time doing? What do you not like spending your time doing?
What's hard for you at home?
Yeah. Is it stairs? Is it too much, landscaping? Is it just the whole house is too big? What is it? What's going on? And even if you're seeing it and you know what it is, ask them anyways. And, don't be like, the stairs are bad, right? Or whatever, like, you need to do this, or it's time for you to do this, or you can't stay here forever, and, you need to start making decisions, and, all of the things that you want to push them down the road because you see it so clearly yourself. Let them self-discover. Like, ask curious questions. Mom, if you didn't have to take care of that, all those flower beds you have, what would you do with your time?
Yeah. I know, last year we, several of us all met at my mom's and, did all the mulch for her in her garden. She has a beautiful yard and has always had it well landscaped, and she wasn't able to go do all of that she used to, and we went and we did it. She was so appreciative, and that was kind of step one. And then this year she's moved into some different landscaping plans where she's had a lot more of the beds kind of transition to very low maintenance plants and things that she won't have to be out there doing. And it's just self-discovering down that road of what will make it easier without just saying, okay, we're ripping all of this out. It'll be best for you.
Or we're selling the house.
Yeah. There's ways to walk down that path in little steps.
Yeah. So, try not to take control. It's easy to think that, you see it so clearly, but you are seeing it through your lens and not through their lens.
Yeah.
And their lens is, has a lot more life experience and a lot more of their legacy inside of it, and, memories and maybe even guilt, like all kinds of feelings that their lens is looking at it through. So give them time to warm up to it. It's not usually just a one-time conversation, and maybe, offer to go look at some places with them. Hey, and it's okay if you don't want to move. I would say things like that. It's okay, but let's go see what else is out there. Reach out to a realtor like us and kind of figure out what other options there are and do it together if that's something that they want to do. If they don't want to do it together, that's okay too. That means that's a piece of it you don't have to help with. But information always makes your decisions easier. And so, try from different angles. If they want to hold on to all their stuff, then don't start with the stuff. Start with something else.
Yeah, and it's okay to just plant some seeds.
Yeah.
And revisit. There's a lot of us that need time to process things and to think, and that self-discovery happens more in our head later versus needing to get down to that last question and a solution in one conversation. Just go a little bit further each time and plant some seeds and move slowly down that path of the conversation if that's what works best.
Yeah, find out what's most important to them, what's bothering them about their life, things that are bothering them, and help them define their reasons, not yours, theirs, and so that then that process can stay centered on them, and what it is. So when they're trying to get rid of things and they're struggling with it, you can be like, you'll be able to travel once you get into that space that but we don't have room for this there, or whatever. You can go back to whatever it is that is their buttons that they're excited about. And
I think realizing that values and emotions often matter much more than logistics, and so asking those questions, if you tour someplace and it's beautiful and has the medical services they need, or everything seems right on paper, but you're getting a flat out no, from your parents, there's more questions. What matters more? Being close to your friends, being close to your church, is it a social life, or is it something they don't have that you really need? Just really asking those questions around what they value and, what their emotions are around it might, help you find that yes for them and help through that. So make sure you're not just looking at the logistics like, okay, well, you can afford it and they have a room. So this is great.
Let's is where
go.
You should go.
Yeah.
And also the logistics will get so much easier once you've gotten past whatever emotional bars are there.
Yeah, so just making sure that the process stays centered on that motivation will get you down the path. It's not about just renting a dumpster and throwing things away and not listening to the stories. So let's talk a little bit about defining that role and how to figure out what role will work best with your parents and your family. Kind of 3 different roles that we often see being able to fill. The facilitator, that is the person that is great with schedules and logistics, coordinating vendors, communicating with family. Sometimes it's someone that's just the muscle. They're great for packing and lifting and donating, hauling things away, just driving, just being that person there. And then there's the person that's the emotional anchor. They're great at just sitting with those emotions and the hard decisions, being encouraging and reminding them about that motivation. I think it's funny, reading this, Jodi's an only child, but I have siblings. And what you'll often find if you have siblings working together, that there's usually one of each, or playing different roles, and that works really well. So make a team. If you've got siblings involved in the process, don't fight against how they are differently helping.
Yeah.
Work together and find that that just multiplies how easy the process can be.
Yeah, because the facilitator, the scheduling logistics person, is rarely the one who wants to sit and listen to the stories.
Yeah.
And listening to their stories, I think, can actually allow them to let go. And it can be a really great bonding time for you, especially when you start going through this stuff and whatever. a lot of people find that once they've told their stories around it, they can let the things go. And if you really, need to or want to, you can video those stories, you can, make audios of those stories or whatever that is. But even just the fact that they've touched it and they've said the story and realized that story might not be as important to their legacy or, whatever, they might not need it. Like, they can tell that story and then let something go. I was going through my Christmas ornaments and my daughter was cracking up. I would tell her something about the ornament and then I would be like, but I don't need that one. And, some of it was like, I don't know who that came from, but we've had it for whatever. That might be the story. And that's why I don't need it. But, I said something about most of them. But just that, it was almost like cathartic. Like, oh, I've said what I need to say and I've realized I don't need it and I can let it go. But if you have somebody, if it's you or if, your brothers and sisters or their friends, it doesn't have to be, family, can sit and listen and be that emotional anchor, it can help that all go much more smoothly.
Yeah, so much of our lives and our identities are wrapped up in our stuff. And, if you're giving it a feeling of, well, this is just junk, let's throw it in the dumpster, without hearing those stories first and just, valuing that is the life
they lived.
That's the sum total of their life. It can be wrapped up in that house full of things. Make sure that you're not just rushing through to discount it and not getting to know your parents and their stories, and you will treasure that later. And just like we talked about earlier, sometimes you have to slow down to make it go fast. This is one of those categories where you absolutely, if you slow down and listen to the stories, then the logistics can go faster because you're not fighting against it.
Yeah. So roles that you should avoid are, boss-like roles, like they're feeling, pushed and they will shut down. Sometimes when we try to be efficient, we sound bossy. We're trying to just, hey, I'm here, I have 2 hours, like, let's get this, whatever.
What are we doing? What are we doing?
And just roll with it. And whatever you get done in the 2 hours is still forward motion, right? And so if you can find your patience and sit back and just let it happen, you probably can get a lot done in 2 hours. But if your attitude around it is like, let's just get this done, then honestly it takes longer. And ask me how I know. I'm just gonna say I struggled with this. So
well, I think our parents want time with us. We
Mm-hmm.
want time with our parents. And so if you can find that way that progress is progress, no matter how small,
Yeah.
and make it quality time in whatever that looks like, then that is the place to just keep going down the road. But if you're making that time just a fight or a battle, nobody feels good about that later, and you're just taking away from that relationship instead of growing it and learning more about them and learning their stories and learning what they want their life to look like so you can support that.
Yeah, and time is precious, right? And so if you only have a couple hours to spend with them, you don't want it to be in frustration.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
exactly. You said it well.
So best ways to help without taking over, right? So we have to ask before we act. So don't start throwing things away when they're not looking, because they will know what it is. Don't drag boxes out of storage and be like, this is the one we need to do. Just talk to them about, hey, I'm going to come over. What area do you want to work on? What would be the best for you in these couple hours that we can start working on? And otherwise, if you kind of start throwing things away or doing that kind of stuff, then you're going to get mistrust, and they're going to be like, don't touch anything because I don't know what you're doing with it, kind of a thing. Even if your intentions are good and you're just trying to help them get where they said they want to go, you still have to just do it in a way that makes them feel that they're in control of it.
Yeah, don't ever lose that trust by just throwing things away when they're not looking, and moving things forward without that permission and that joint decision. That's really important.
Yeah. So ask them stuff like, would you rather start in the kitchen, or do you want to do the closet? Or do you want me to photograph some of this stuff before we donate it? Is that something that you want to, remember with a photograph? Or, do you want me to reach out to the estate sale company and see, or do you want me to find them for you and give you the numbers and you can talk to them? Like, just kind of, how do you want to proceed, but like keep marching down the road, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, kind of tackling the pieces that are maybe easier for you while not expecting that. I mean, I see this in technology. If you're able to scan photos and there's a certain stack, then focus on sorting, through photos with your parent, and then take the ones that need kept or the ones that need scanned and just do that. And, don't have a constant battle on, well, just scan them, and things that might be
telling
easier
them
for
to do
us.
it.
Yeah. That can save a lot of frustration too, getting to the point where you can do something that maybe you have a different skill level at, without just saying, well, just do that. It's easy.
It's not easy for them maybe.
Yeah.
And when you're sorting stuff, when you've gotten to the point where you're ready to, come in and sort stuff, there's always like an easy win pile, right? Like there's always stuff that like nobody cares about. They don't really care about it. You don't really care about it. It's just kind of like, so see if you can get through that and take it out of the house, take it straight to donation, just get it out of the way, or call and have a donation scheduled so that in 2 weeks we're going to have to put some stuff out front and what's it going to be. But start just getting things out of the house, and the easy wins. The hard stuff, put that aside. Revisit it when they have more energy. If there's a day where they're like, I want to do photos. Okay, you do photos, but realize that's not going to be a super fast production like we're going to get through of a lot of stuff on photo day. But you might hear some really great stories, and you might really be able to connect with them in ways that you haven't. And so just be ready to spend your time doing that and know that you're still moving forward.
Yeah, we always, encourage starting with some momentum, with some easy wins, and then popping into the harder things. And if it's too much, pop back out to something easier, and just keep moving forward.
Yeah. And if you know where they're going to go and you know what the size of those rooms are and stuff, you can kind of get an idea and help them figure out like, hey, this is going to fit and this isn't going to fit. Because we do see a lot of times people will just take more stuff than fits in their smaller new place, and then they feel crowded and claustrophobic in it, and then they're like, oh, this wasn't a good choice. And it's like, nope, it was a good choice. We just didn't let go of enough things before we came here.
Yeah, I think we see too a lot of people we meet just say, well, I need to save all this because, this grandchild might want this for their first apartment, and this, I'm saving this because, so-and-so said they liked it at one point. One way to really help is to be the facilitator of getting those things, getting the actual decisions from family on those things and helping get them out of the house, because people can often save a whole house full of stuff with the expectation that, oh, somebody said they might, be getting their first house soon and they're going to want it, or whatnot. So if your family, if your parents are holding on to stuff for lots of people in the family or for you, be the facilitator and get that out, get deadlines, move that out of the way, or get to the point where it's like, no, we actually don't need that dining table anymore. Let's donate that, or whatever the next step is. Don't let a pause, don't be the person that's causing the pause with your stuff being there, or, other family members.
Yeah, we see so often that like they have all of your high school stuff or all of your, baby stuff or, whatever, and they're saving it for you. And if that's what they're doing, take the boxes, take them home, pick out what you want. If there's anything, I literally just went through my high school box and it had, 90% stuff that I didn't want. It had like 2 things that I thought were cool that I wanted to keep. And, it was done. Like it took me 15 minutes to go through that box, and my mom had kept it for me for, years, many, many years. We're not going to say how many years since high school, but a lot of years. And So take that stuff off of their plate if they're saving it for you, and don't be like, Mom, I don't want that. I never wanted that. Why'd you save it? Like, it's just not worth it. Those words
Yeah.
are just not worth it. Take it home, figure out what it is you want. It's your stuff anyway.
Yeah.
You get to make all the choices about it. Their stuff, they have to make the choices about. And if they're trying to give it all to you, that's another story we'll talk about in a minute. But your own stuff, we have so many people that are like, I have all my kids this, that, and the other stuff, and they need to come and get it. And we're like, well, tell them to come and get it, like now, like come and get it.
Yes, or have that conversation that you truly don't want it, and work through that and let it go.
Yeah. So if emotions start to run high, then just know that that's normal, and be able to just look at it and take a breath. Like, it's okay. Maybe we're done for today. Let's just have lunch instead now. Or, not like we're done and I'm leaving, kind of whatever, just kind of like decision fatigue is a real thing. And depending on how emotional the things are that you're going through, they can only take so much. So when they start keeping everything, it's time to just stop. It's like they've hit their wall on how many decisions that they can make around whatever that area that you're working on is. And you can either go to a different area, say, hey, this one's feeling hard. Why don't we go, do the coat closet or something? Or, hey, let's take a break and sit down and have a drink, a cup of tea or whatever that is, let's sit down and have a little snack or something.
Regroup.
Yep. So, and we're not trying to rush you, Mom and Dad. We're not trying to rush you. So even if you feel in your mind, like, get on with it, because that's how we feel usually.
Yeah, we've all been there. So some of the hot button categories that are likely to bring on more of these emotions, they're all the hard categories that we talk about all the time, but photos, heirlooms, gifts that you gave them that they're emotional about, collections, tools or hobby items tied to identity, wedding china, so much china in the world.
China. So much paperwork.
Yeah, paperwork.
Oh, like your taxes from 1972, like we don't need them.
Yeah, paperwork is so tough in this conversation because you often need the knowledge of your parents to know what of their paperwork is important or not, because you don't know their full scope in most cases, so you need them to do it, but it's overwhelming. So just kind of tackling that with, let's help sort. Let's put all the stuff from this bank in one pile, and this,
medical bills,
whatever it is, and helping with that. It is.
And if it's more than like 10 years old, all of it can go, and I can take this to the shredder for you, or whatever,
Yeah, so it's a category that you really need your parents' involvement in. It will make things easier down the road if you ever need to step in and help, if it's already organized. So don't skip this category. Help them get it organized for you and for themselves. But do that with lots of, just patience and sorting, and like Jodi said, getting what you don't need out of the house quickly and to a to the shredder, and do that for it.
Yeah, we did an episode on paperwork, so go listen to that one if you're dealing with the paperwork, and it will tell you all the things that you need to keep, their marriage certificate and things that documents that you need to keep, and then, all the stuff that you don't need to keep. And if you can help them organize it, if it's not organized already, into one place, that will help you down the road, honestly. Again, ask me how I know, because if it's all over the place later, it will be very, very hard.
Yeah, and if you're helping your parents move to a smaller space, overwhelming that new space with just boxes of paperwork that's not needed, we've seen that, and it's too much. It's not going to add to the day-to-day of the new space. It will just make it overwhelming. So make sure to go through that. I think this is a great place, too, on some of the other hot button categories, is being that resource to show your parents how they can save maybe just a piece or two, and choose, curate what to honor, different ways to honor something, hanging something on a wall, if you don't need your whole china collection, but, putting a couple of plates if you have multiple collections on the wall as art, and, filling that new space with all of the things they love in very small doses. So you're just keeping some of that and honoring it.
Yeah. Yeah. And then they're going to want you to take things. And so I think that there needs to be a conversation around this of you don't have the space in your house to take everything either, because it's not fair for them to just not make a decision on it and then just expect you to take it. And so I think that some things that you have to do there are, because you're going to resent it later, you're going to be like, ugh, Mom made me take that and that and that. And then you're going to feel claustrophobic in your own house around all of those things. And there will be things that you want. And so I think that you need to point out to them in the kindest way, tell me the story about it. Like, tell me why this is important to you. Listen to the story and hear it. And if that story resonates with you and that makes you want to keep it, great. If it doesn't, then you can say, I don't have a place for that. But it doesn't mean that you don't love them. I think that that's a whole, like, it's not all tied together. And Mom, I really want to take this other thing because this is what I remember from growing up, and here's my story around it and why I want to keep it and why it's so important to me and reminds me of you when I look at it. So can I just take this thing instead, or, whatever. And so give them that. It's not,
I think those mental stories around items are so personal and so different. You can all grow up in the same family home, but the stories around items are different for me than they are for my sister or my brother, or, many stories my parents wouldn't even know how much something meant to me to always see one particular thing or remember, interaction with them around it. And so that is so valuable. What you just said is make sure you're telling those stories back as you're getting rid of things. Like, I know we have to let this go, but do you remember that time when, and tell those stories around your life with your parents, and there's, the stuff from your home. That's so valuable to your parents as well, and such a great way to grow closer.
Yeah. Yeah. So guilt's not a gift either way. Like, them making you take something, all of it. It's not a gift. Guilt's not a gift. So figure out how you can have that conversation. Take the things that you really do want, that really remind you of them and who they were in your past, and what, those pieces that really make you look at them and go, oh gosh, that really reminds me of Mom, makes me so happy. And let the rest of it go. And don't feel like you have to take it because they want you to.
Yeah, the goal in this whole process is support, not winning an argument or, being right.
Yeah, that's hard. So, and sometimes if it's something that's, I wouldn't say lie and take it and then get rid of it necessarily, but sometimes it's not worth that fight of like, yep, I can take that. And then, maybe you keep it for a little bit, but not forever.
Yeah, so this whole process with our parents can bring in tension. And so when that happens, number one, take a pause and just step back and switch to something that's less tension bringing. But after that, there's a lot of neutral helpers you can bring in. And lots that you may not have heard of. So if it's your first time going through this with your parents, you might not have any idea that lots of services exist. So we would love to share those with you. There are organizing companies that will help pack and sort and listen to the stories and help, make those decisions, especially if you're out of state from where your parents are. That's hard to be there to do that all the time. There are, of course, contractors and all the things that we as real estate agents have access to for getting the house ready to sell. There are move managers that specifically, know the communities your parents might be moving into and can do that and unpack so that they're ready to, sleep there and have breakfast the next morning. You might need an estate sale or consignment shops, donation resources. Those are all things we deal with daily.
All the time.
Yeah. If you're going through the paperwork and you're realizing you need, elder law attorneys or financial planners, all of those resources, they can take some of that load off.
Yeah, and when somebody that's not you as the child says something, even if it's the same thing you've been saying, they sometimes listen. And sometimes if you are genuinely, putting on your patience, and doing all of those things and you aren't getting anywhere, sometimes it's really worthwhile to just have a neutral party come in and talk to them, because there's lots of history with us, with our parents, right? Yeah. And so sometimes it's hard to get around the patterns that have happened in the past. And so if you need somebody neutral to do that, that can get rid of that friction. So again, you can move forward, they can move forward, and everybody can feel good about it.
Yeah, awesome. And your role is then to just be the supporter, let your parents stay in front of the conversations, but be there to be that second pair of ears and, help process the information and help coordinate, but they're still the decision maker.
Yep. You can do it.
Yeah, yeah. So
try to just really enjoy the process. That's what I would say.
Yeah, keep that relationship at the forefront, and that's the most important part.
And the stories.
Yeah,
the stories will help you enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. So if there's anything that we can do to help, as you're going through this, we've been there, we've done it. We've helped clients, but we've helped our own families. So reach out to us, our website, www.downsizingroadmap.com. Lots of resources and all of our contact info.
All right. Talk to you next time.
Yeah. Bye-bye. Thanks for joining us on the Downsizing Roadmap Podcast. If you found this episode helpful, be sure to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with someone who might need a little downsizing inspiration. Have questions or ideas for future episodes? Reach out to us on our website, www.downsizingroadmap.com. Until next time, let's keep simplifying and moving forward.